Let's get a quick take on Colorado elected leaders Cory Gardner and Mike Coffman joining others in criticizing President Trump's trust in Vladimir Putin following his summit with the Russian president. Gardner wants to label Russia as a state sponsor of terror, and Coffman said, quote, that Putin's Russia is not our friend. Pettit Cahoon from Westward, Coffman and Gardner were not uncommon in their party. Gardner did go out on a little bit more of a limb, wanting to call Russia a state sponsor of terror. I don't know how that's gonna be a little awkward next spring when Vladimir comes to town in D.C. But what do you think of the reaction we saw from Coffman and Gardner, among others?
Well, and also the reaction up in Aspen, where they're having the National Security Conference right now, where Dan Coates finds out that Putin is coming to D.C. from a reporter, not from the White House, not from any other place. So
during a live Q&A.
During a live Q&A. So this was, you thought it couldn't get crazier, it did. Now we've got the definition of what would and would not means. Previously we had what is meant. So presidents have to get organized on that. Maybe Coffman and Gardner can help him just define himself. Gardner was first lambasted for not being strong enough, but then he did come out strong.
David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. Does what happens between Trump and Putin, does it belong to President Trump alone, or will it also belong to Republican lawmakers like Coffman and Gardner?
Well, it depends on the response of the lawmakers. And let's add Michael Bennet, also Colorado's Democratic senator, who didn't go quite as far as Senator Gardner, but had a good, strong statement. What presidents say, especially when they're overseas, their words really do matter, and they do affect things. It's not just, in the U.S., some of Trump's early morning tweets, people can dismiss and say, well, that's just the blather. He hasn't taken his medication yet today. But on an international stage, it's incredibly harmful and destructive, and it shows off to the world that he is weak and stupid and easily manipulated, and that will have very bad consequences in the long run because other hostile powers will see how much they can push him and get away with. He's part of a long-standing tradition of American presidents being, many of them, easily manipulated by Russian tyrants. You can go back to FDR at the Yalta Conference, where Roosevelt stupidly gave away a third of Europe to Stalin, and up through President Trump's predecessor. It is not hard, it turns out, for Russian tyrants to manipulate narcissistic, naive American presidents.
It's a nice reference of Yalta. I listened to a podcast talking about the only guy smiling in that photo is Stalin, yeah. So it's a good point. We have Scott Wasserman, president of the Bell Policy Center, joining us. Scott, you saw the local reactions. Is that enough to separate, you think, local elected leaders from what we saw from the president this week?
I don't think so, and I don't think we should be giving Senator Gardner a pass. He did not criticize Donald Trump. He continues to play games with his statements, and I think it's time to start looking away from the car crash that is Donald Trump and look at the bystanders who are unwilling to do anything about this president. Right next door to us in Arizona, we have two senators who boldly make no apologies about calling out this president and sharing their view that the emperor has no clothes. And so I think it's time for the junior senator from Colorado to step up and actually call this president out on hugely harmful actions for this country.
And Brother Jeff joins us, publisher and editor of 5 Points News. It's great to have you on the panel.
Good to be here.
What did you think of the reaction from Colorado elected lawmakers about what we saw in Russia, or excuse me, in Helsinki?
Well, I think the reaction is interesting in light of the fact that Trump's approval rating is at a place where they don't want to come out particularly strong and risk that having an impact on them. I think it's interesting that Trump went behind closed doors, and perhaps he had to just take a moment to say thank you to Putin for all he's done for him. I don't know.